Hello,
Are we? Hello, nice
how's
to
it
see
going?
you. All good, all good. Sorry for the technical glitches.
No, no worries at all. How was your class this afternoon?
Was good, was good. I was just thinking actually couldn't be more casual than this, given that I'm in the middle of classes right now, so all taffy face as well.
Were you doing a lot today?
So I had two private clients this morning. Is actually very sweet. Is a friend of mine who's pregnant. So I did a one-to-one online class with her, and then another private clients. Now a group class, and I'm gonna have another group class after this. So quite full on day, quite full on day, but good. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. We're just winding up and getting ready for the weekend and having a nice day. So let's get started, if you don't mind, with a little bit about you, just for everyone who's tuning in, who you are, where you're located, just a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Chiara. Nice to meet you all, Cloud Studio Community. And I'm based in London. So I'm originally from Italy, but I've been living in London for over 10 years now. So it has been quite a long journey for me, and I love it here. I feel very much at home. I'm in Greenwich, so it's also very close to the park. Is rather beautiful here.
Amazing. And your practice has been mostly in London, other than your virtual practice, but the majority of your Pilates practice has developed in London.
Yes, I started in London. So I came here in 2009 to do a BA in dance theater. So I have a background in dance, and that's how I discovered Pilates. So it was originally part of my own practice, and then I got so hooked that I wanted to do a Pilates teacher training. Then after that, I ended up going to France for a little while, and that's actually where I started doing some private teaching, some one-to-ones and some small group classes. And then eventually I've been coming and going back and forth to London, and now is where I'm more established.
Amazing. And we had a question come in, and I want to sort of kick this off with this because, I mean, first of all, we had the privilege of chatting last week, so I know a little bit more about your practice than the people listening in. But one of your followers commented on our story asking the question about the difference between yoga and Pilates. And I know that for you, and we can dive into how we got here, but there's a lot of mindfulness and meditation in your practice.
Yeah.
And so particularly for Chiara, for your practice, how do you differentiate the two? How do you bring in elements of both? How does that work when someone's in one of your classes?
Right. I think it's a very good question, and is a question I get asked a lot of times. And I just have a general feeling that out there, there's a lot of debate and a bit of a contrast at times between yoga and Pilates. And I want to highlight that they're more similar than different, contrary to what one might think. And Pilates is way more recent than yoga, and Pilates itself takes a lot from yoga already. So I always give a lot of credit to yoga in that sense. It's a way more ancient practice. My way of thinking about it, if I were to explain it to a newbie, is that both yoga and Pilates are mind and body conditioning. So we're both bringing mind and body together through movement and breathing. So those are the kind of the pillars that are foundation of both disciplines. In my experience, I love yoga, and I'm a fond practitioner of yoga as well. I would say that Pilates can be described a little bit as the Westerner yoga in terms, at least that's my take, in terms of how Pilates can appeal to the Western mind, as in is very anatomy based, can be quite dry as a method as well, and can also be quite mechanical in the way of looking at the body. And I think this has great advantages because it makes it very easy to understand. So if I'm asking you to, move your arm without moving your spine or without moving your rib cage, is, those bits and bobs of the body that we can easily think about. I'm also a strong believer that there's way more to this, and that the body is a whole and that everything is connected. But I just find that the mechanical approach, at least to start with, can be very useful for our way of thinking and our way of relating to the body. Now, this probably is a bit too much detail already, but in
Oh, great.
general, if I were to, to just give a more basic explanation, um, in yoga, you depend on the type of yoga as well, but you tend to maybe hold the stretches for a little longer, while in Pilates, you might want to focus a little more on isolation and repetitions. So said, I think there's a great benefit in the stretches, and I personally love the flow that yoga has. So in my practice, I tend to be quite conscious of the healthy range of movement of the joints, give quite anatomical explanation and corrections. Siren. But at the same time, I try to bring in a sense of flow in the movement. I love exercises that easily transition from one to the other. And by bringing in that sense of flow, you can experience a little bit of cardio as well, which otherwise is rare in this type of classes. So yeah, I love both. I think there's a lot to learn from both. And please don't think that they are against each other, because they are not.
And I mean, speaking of your classes, I know that you teach about a third of your classes in Italian. Can you can you share with us a little bit about your community, your virtual community, whether it's the Italian speaking community or the English speaking community?
So there's both, and they also cross paths, which I love. I thought when everything moved online, exactly a year ago, actually, for me was the opportunity to offer classes to friends across the globe, which may not be physically in London, and also to reach out to those friends in Italy, and family as well, and colleagues and whatnot. It just went on by word of mouth, and be able to offer classes in my own language, and for people of my country, which I found extremely interesting, was very heartwarming. Was even just the opportunity to see my mom and dad twice a week online doing some movements. The thing I found challenging, I must say, is that I've learned Pilates in English, so I'm really comfortable in giving corrections and all of that in English. And when that moves on to Italian, you would think I would be more comfortable with the language. But I realized the way of giving corrections and the anatomical terms are way longer. So believe it or not, in 1 hour class, I actually end up doing less exercises than in a class in English, just because of the language, I find. But
So you start to tailor your classes and the flows of the classes based off the language you're going to speak in the class.
a little bit. It shouldn't be. I think I've gotten better with practice, but I'm just finding it interesting. It's something I've noticed before. Living and speaking in a language that is not my first language. Obviously, there's a bit of a different mindset at times, and a different emphasis in different aspects of a conversation, or the way you use your vocabulary. So it's interesting how that can also be applied to what I do every day, which is movement. So whether it's yoga, Pilates, meditation, breathing, suddenly the way you pick the words feels quite different in different languages.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine. And touching on the side of your practice that is heavily influenced um, by Buddhism, and I know that you spent a lot of time studying and bringing that into the fold of your life. Are you able to share a little bit about your journey towards studying Buddhism and how that's rounded itself into your practice?
Yes. So I would say my interest in Buddhist philosophy and in meditation is dated a few years back now. And I kind of came across meditation in different occasions through, yoga and other bodily practices. What really made me want to know more is when I did this experience. This would open a long chapter, so I'll try to keep it short. But for sometimes I've been sitting for portraits. So nothing related to movement, right? Is actually quite the opposite. So I was being asked to be completely still while the others would paint and draw. And I'm extremely grateful to that experience, because not only was a beautiful environment and made me meet amazing people, a lot of which, you know, I'm still in class with and they're actually coming to class, but was the opportunity for me to sit still for many hours. And that was incredible, because I realized how I've always been, as most of us are, very busy with my life and very active also physically. So suddenly having to sit still for 6 hours a day usually was incredible. And yeah, you laugh. I've been talking about this also with
I
some
I can imagine
monastics at
that.
the monastery, and they go like, "Wow, that's like more intense than a vipassana retreat," you know. It is a very unique experience, and perhaps without going, you know, that intensely. But it's something I recommend to everyone, just because you have an opportunity to let things arise within yourself. So I started with that experience. At first, you know, was great. I felt like I could think so much about so many things. I could go through my to-do list. I prepared my anatomy exams while I was sitting for portrait. It's like a win-win. But after a while, you just realize you get exhausted. So if you just stay there and listen to your head 6 hours in a row without doing anything else, it can be very intense and can be very draining. And I found that once you get to the end of that train of thoughts, then it's just random stuff arising. So it can be memories, and suddenly you're thinking, why am I even thinking about that? And what I found interesting, just by observing myself and the way my body was reacting to certain sensations, is how I started realizing the way that memories were somewhat stored in the body. So I've noticed at times I would be, you know, holding maybe an uncomfortable pose for my neck, and I would have this like, you know, actually positive memories coming up, although the pose was physically uncomfortable, but there was openness in the body. And at other times where the pose, you know, was maybe looking down, totally comfortable, but suddenly I would have more like negative thoughts arising. So just started questioning within myself the relation between posture and thoughts, and also between pain and thoughts, because at times I realized I would catch myself going down a bit of a negative train of thoughts. And then I would just have to admit, Chiara, your neck is in pain right now. Okay, so just accept it and move on. And the moment you do that, it's like if you suddenly, might sound bizarre, but it's like if you suddenly step aside of yourself and you watch this weird conversation going on between your body and your mind, and you realize you actually play a role in this. You're not your thoughts, and you have a choice. You can decide to either be trapped in your thoughts, or maybe try to bring in some positivity in that. So that experience was very special for me, and is what made me go like, okay, I see there's a lot here that I need to learn about myself. What's the best way to go about it? So through a friend, I was already reading into Buddhism, and a friend whom I met while I was doing this experience is actually the person that introduced me to Plum Village, which is this monastery in France, founded by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is a very well-known Zen monk. So that was my first step into a bit more of you know, a bit more guided practice and
Right.
meditation. Yeah.
Right. So as an Italian growing up and moving to London for 10 years and bringing in Buddhism into the fold, it's quite the cultural makeup.
Yeah, it's quite a mix.
Will you share a little bit about the makeup of your classes right now? I know that in our conversation last week, we were talking about the um, the opportunity for Zoom to allow you to have clients in France and have clients in Switzerland and have clients in the US and bring your parents into the fold. Will you talk a little bit about what it means to run classes with people from all over the world?
Mm, I love it. I know it has been a tough year in many ways, but for me it has been very joyful, and I really thank everyone that has been part of this journey, because being able to still do what I love doing, although through a screen, which obviously feels different than in person, but being able to reach out to those people that are not physically here felt incredibly special. And the thing that started developing quite naturally is that people would tune in at the same time. They've never met before, but it's pretty much the same people every time, in different times during the week. And so people started feeling very comfortable with each other. And at first, obviously, we would discuss about, how the pandemic is affecting the area that individually we're living in, or what are the restrictions in place at the moment. And everyone had a bit of a space to be able to share that. But then it turned out into having, an insight into people's lives and into people's houses as well. And I think it became a very intimate environment as well. So a lot of them, they still see each other every week. And although they've never physically met, they're all very comfortable with one another. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see.
Right. And do you enjoy when your parents drop in, or does that make you nervous?
I do, unless they are late. No, but I do. I do. Um, it doesn't make me feel nervous. It's actually rather nice. I get to see the cats back home as well. Every time we do cat stretch, weirdly, the cats come, believe it or not. And
Where are they located?
they are in Padua, which is near Venice, up in the northeast of Italy.
Got it. And we skipped over it, but Noah asked in the comments here, what was the name of the monastery in France?
It's called Plum Village, or Village des Pruniers in French. I'd highly recommend it. For me, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And the place itself is beautiful. It's surrounded by fields. There's a lot of sunflower scenes, a lot of plum trees, obviously, hence the name. And they're very open type of monastery. They're very proactive. They promote this. It's called engaged Buddhism. So they're actually very involved in matters that concern the environment, for example, and so on. And it's a place I'd recommend. It's a place I recommend.
Amazing. And I don't want to take up much more of your time. We'll do one more question, which is in our interview last week, you spoke about how uh, doing Pilates is almost like having the keys to your own body and unlocking your awareness of movement, whether it's sitting, standing, just being in touch with your body. Can you share a little bit more on your philosophy there and how you feel about that?
As I said earlier, probably also answering the yoga Pilates
Mm,
question. I think that with a method like Pilates, because of the way that can resonate with our Western mind in the way we can think and relate to the body, I believe that you can get in touch with the body in the way that you're more aware about your body. You start being more aware about your way of standing, for example, of your posture, or the way you breathe, and also of the way you move. So by moving with precision and in isolation, as we said earlier, it starts giving you an understanding of what your limits are as well, and what maybe the differences between your right and left are.
mm,
So by bringing awareness to the way you feel your body, I believe you start being more aware of yourself as a whole. So your body can always be a starting point in relation to the way you feel when you're experiencing a particular moment. So for example, if you're aware of the way you breathe, let's say, you might actually realize whether you're breathing fully, or if your breath is shallow, or if your heart is beating really fast. So whichever awareness you can bring into your body, then it gives you a better understanding and connection with yourself. So I'm a strong believer, and in that I think the whole experience at the Buddhist center and so on have informed the way I think about this. But that through a mindful way of moving, you can encourage also a more mindful way of living altogether,
Mm.
because you are more aware. And there's a funny story from a client actually. After the first block of 6 one-to-one classes we did together, I'll always remember she suddenly walked in the studio with a smile, like from ear to ear. I was like, what's happening? And she said, you know, I was at the office today and I've been working in the same place for 3 years. And I was sitting at my desk, I was doing my usual thing, and then suddenly I had your voice stuck in my head. I was like, oh boy, here we go. And she said, you know, I heard your voice saying, lengthening up through the spine, reach the crown of the head up. And the moment I did that, I realized I could actually see past my computer to the end of the office. And she said, I've been sitting at this desk for 3 years, and I must have been slouching so much that I thought my little world ended up here with the computer. And, you know, suddenly having that awareness can also feel quite empowering, because, you know, you can sit differently, and starting from those small changes, you can also bring bigger changes in your everyday life.
For sure. Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I know you're a few hours ahead of us, so thanks for taking time between classes.
No
And
problem.
absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Lovely to see you too. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. We'll be in touch. Bye.
For sure. Have a nice day. Thank you,
You
everyone.
you as well. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye bye.